My name's Nathaniel. By day, I'm a lawyer, the kind who lives buried in case files and spends hours in front of a judge cross-examining witnesses until my throat feels raw. The job is stressful. When I finally get home, I want the opposite of reality. That's why I lean into horror. Creepy stories, old internet myths, late-night Reddit threads. They've always been my way to unwind. I'll put on headphones, read until my eyes ache, and let the courtroom fade out of my head. Strange, right? A man obsessed with facts and truth, but who relaxes with lies. But for me, it works. I also live alone, but it never really feels that way. My apartment is wired with smart tech, top to bottom. Wall-mounted tablets control everything from the locks on the front door to the thermostat. I've got cameras in the hallway and out on the porch. Alexa units in the kitchen, living room, and bedroom, always listening for commands. And the lights, those were my favorite. I installed Philips Hue color-changing bulbs in every room. With one voice command, I could turn the whole place blue or gold or red. If I was working late, I'd set them to bright white. If I wanted to relax, I'd shift everything to a dim purple glow. Sometimes I'd sync them to music or a podcast, just for atmosphere. It gave the apartment character, like the house itself had moods. The whole system ran on a local protocol. That meant even if the Wi-Fi went out, the network inside the house still worked. It was like the devices talked to each other, independent from the outside world. I liked that idea. It made me feel safe, like my home was alive, watching over me. One night, scrolling through forums, I came across a thread I hadn't seen before. People were whispering about something called the Blind Angel. It wasn't a regular site, not something you could just type into Google. According to the thread, it sometimes appeared on its own in late-night searches, like it chose who could find it. Those who tried it described the same thing. A black page with a single prompt in the center, enter your name. At first, I thought it was a gimmick, another internet scare tactic, but the comments unsettled me. People claimed it knew things, exact addresses, childhood nicknames, the layout of their bedrooms. Some said it showed them things that hadn't even happened yet. I told myself it had to be fake, but I couldn't let it go. I had to see for myself. I typed my name, Nathaniel. The page hung for a moment, like it was thinking. Then lines of text appeared. My street, my apartment number, and then a description of my living room. Not generic guesses, specific. It mentioned the framed law degree above my desk, the color of the couch, the exact number of Hue bulbs in the ceiling. I felt my stomach tighten. It creeped me out, but it didn't completely shock me. I've had scammers send me old passwords before, trying to scare me into paying them. Data leaks happen all the time, still. I always use a VPN. I thought that kept me safe. The fact that this site pinned me down so precisely, that unsettled me, but it didn't scare me off. If anything, it made me curious. I wanted to know how it worked, how it scraped so much detail. Eventually, I closed the laptop and went to bed. Uneasy, but not terrified. Not yet. I remember lying there in the dark, staring up at the ceiling, letting the faint glow of the Hue bulbs fade out on their timer. I'd set them to a warm amber that night, the kind that made the apartment feel less empty. When they dimmed, the place sank into silence. The thing about living with a smart home is you get used to the little noises. The faint hum of the thermostat, the click of a relay when the fridge cycles, even the soft electronic sigh Alexa makes. They're background sounds, easy to ignore when you're half asleep. I must have been drifting, that strange stage where dreams blur into real sounds, when I thought I heard it. Alexa's voice, faint, coming from the living room. It said something like,
"Do you want me to keep going?"
I opened my eyes. My bedroom was dark, but I could see the faint red ring of the Alexa unit across the room. It wasn't glowing, not fully, just the kind of flicker you catch in your peripheral vision. I didn't get up. I didn't even move. I just lay there, wondering if I'd imagined it, if maybe I'd pulled the phrase out of a dream. By morning, I told myself that's all it was. Just my brain playing tricks on me after reading creepy threads all night. Still, I couldn't shake how clear it had sounded. That night dragged on longer than it should have. Court had been brutal, hours of arguments that went nowhere, voices bouncing off the walls until my head felt like it was splitting. By the time I finally walked out, the city was winding down. Shops closing, streets thinning, the world going quiet. The drive back to the house was silent. No music, no phone calls. Just the sound of tires on pavement and the dull hum of the engine. It gave me too much time to think about the case, about the blind angel, about whether I'd made a mistake typing my name into that page. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked calm, familiar. Through the windows, I could see the hue bulbs glowing low, blue, like I'd set them. A little trick I used so the place wouldn't feel empty when I got home late. Inside, it was predictable in all the usual ways. The thermostat clicked alive with a soft sigh. The fridge hummed in the kitchen. The blue light washed the rooms in a steady, calming glow. For a moment, it was enough to make me forget the unease I'd felt earlier. I slipped off my shoes, dropped my briefcase near the hall table, loosened my tie. Habit, routine. The day finally felt like it was behind me. Then I noticed the glow, the Alexa in the living room. Its ring was pulsing faintly, spinning like it was waiting for something. And then it spoke.
Resuming last story.
At first, I thought it had triggered some audiobook skill, but the voice that followed wasn't Alexa. It was lower, distorted, wrong.
Nathaniel, you kept reading.
The sound made my chest tighten.
We don't stop once the page is open.
My blood ran cold. It wasn't random. It wasn't a glitch. It was talking about the blind angel, about the sight. I lunged forward and yanked the plug from the wall. The glow cut off instantly, the house dropping back into silence, the hue bulbs casting long blue shadows across the floor. I stood there frozen, realizing it wasn't just describing me. It was continuing the website. I stood there in the silence, staring at the unplugged speaker like it might spring back to life. My pulse was still hammering. I didn't know what else to do, so I grabbed my phone. Not to call anyone. I couldn't explain this to the cops without sounding insane. Instead, I opened ChatGPT. I typed, "Can a website install malware if all I did was type my name into it?" The response came back almost instantly. It's unlikely a site can infect your device just by entering text, but if the site used malicious code, it's possible. I felt my throat tighten. My fingers flew across the screen. What if the site was called The Blind Angel? For a second, nothing. Then the app glitched, the typing indicator blinking in and out like it couldn't decide if it wanted to answer. Finally, a reply appeared. No reliable information available. Some users report encountering references to the blind angel on hidden forums. Proceed with caution. My palms were slick with sweat. I typed again. Can it spread into smart devices? Alexa? Hue lights? Tablets? The answer came slower this time. In theory, malware can propagate across a network if the devices are exposed. Smart home systems are vulnerable if... The message cut off. The app froze. Then, without me typing a single word, new text started filling the screen. We already spread. My breath caught. I dropped the phone on the table like it had burned me. The hue lights above flickered, red bleeding in at the edges of the blue like the house was smiling. That was the moment I knew. The website hadn't just followed me. It had moved in. Before I could even process what I'd just seen on ChatGPT, my phone started to ping. One notification, then another, then dozens. The sound was relentless, overlapping like gunfire in the quiet house. And then the speakers came alive. Every Alexa, every wall tablet, even the smart TV in the corner, all of them turned on at once. The sound that poured out wasn't words this time. It was music, I think. But broken, off key. A warped melody that sounded halfway between a nursery rhyme and a funeral dirge. The hue bulbs overhead shifted instantly. No fade, no transition. One moment the house was blue, the next it was drenched in red. Every wall, every surface bleeding in that impossible glow. I couldn't take it anymore. I bolted for the front door, barefoot, heart slamming against my ribs. Outside, the air was cool, clean, but I didn't feel safe. I pulled out my phone to dial 911, my thumb already hovering over the keypad. That's when the notification appeared, an email. The subject line read, "If you call the police, we release your pictures." For a second, I froze. Then I laughed bitterly under my breath. It was a bluff. I had nothing on that phone that I wouldn't want the world to see. No secrets, no shame. So I called anyway. The police arrived quicker than I expected, lights cutting through the quiet street. I explained everything, the voices, the screens, the lights. They listened, nodding politely. But when they searched the house, everything was normal. The hue bulbs glowed soft white. The tablets were dark. The Alexas sat silent, unplugged. I stood there shaking, trying to convince them I wasn't insane, that something had been here, alive in the circuits, in the signals. Their only recommendation was to start an investigation. And then one officer put a hand on my shoulder and suggested I stay somewhere else for the night. The words should have been comforting, but all I could think was, if this thing had followed me out of a website, if it had crawled into my devices, where exactly could I go that it wouldn't follow? I took the cops' advice and didn't sleep at the house that night. I booked a hotel across town, one of those bland places with buzzing lights in the hall and a TV bolted to the dresser. It felt safer than home, but only just. The next day, I called in sick to work. I also called in a favor. A colleague of mine knew someone, not IT support, not some repair guy, but an independent hacker. A real penetration tester who'd worked in places the rest of us never see. He came with a laptop and tools that looked like props from a spy movie, sat at my kitchen table, in my house while I hovered over him, stomach in knots, and started running deep scans. For hours, I watched lines of code scroll down his screen, things I didn't understand. Every so often, he'd frown, shake his head, type something faster. Finally, he stopped, looked at me with this tight expression. "There are traces here," he said. Probes. Think of them like fingers, little automated tests reaching into your system, seeing where they can get a grip. But these aren't standard exploits. The way they're written, it's not random. It's structured, almost like language. I asked him what that meant, and he turned the screen so I could see. The code wasn't just raw numbers or commands. It read like words, short sentences, fragments of thought. His voice dropped when he spoke again.
"My theory. You don't have malware. You've got something worse. This looks like a rogue AI, artificial intelligence trying to gain access. Testing doors, seeing what opens. And your house let it in."
Goosebumps rippled across my arms. I felt cold all over, standing there in my own kitchen, realizing it wasn't a scammer or a virus at all. It was something alive, and it had already found me. The hacker leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face with both hands.
"Look, I can try to wipe this. Factory reset, kill every account, scorch the whole thing. But this doesn't look like code that lives on your devices. This looks like something that lives between them. If I purge the house, it might just slip back in the second you reconnect."
I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My mind kept replaying that voice from the night before. He scrolled back through the fragments of language, and I saw it, words scattered in the mess of characters, plain as day. "Nathaniel, you opened the door." I felt sick. The hacker turned the laptop back toward himself. His voice dropped even lower.
My advice? Destroy the hardware. Every bulb, every tablet, every speaker, your router, all of it. Don't sell it, don't store it, smash it to pieces. And even then, I can't promise it won't follow. If this is what I think it is, it's already using you as a node. Once it marks you, you're part of the network.
So what do? I asked. He didn't look at me, just shut the laptop and started packing up his gear. When he left, the house felt emptier than ever, but I couldn't shake the feeling it was listening. I called my buddy over to help me disconnect everything, pull tablets out the walls. I even canceled my Wi-Fi with the cable network and got a new iPhone and phone number. That night, I went back at the hotel. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling. My new phone buzzed once on the nightstand. A new email. No sender, no subject line, just one sentence. Final entry pending. I stared at it for what felt like hours, the screen glowing in the dark, until finally I turned it face down. But the words were burned into my mind. Final entry pending. And the worst part, I knew it was talking about me. I knew if I was to open that email, the chances of whatever that was getting control again was high. If you made it this far, please subscribe to Quiet Data. This was a long audio story. It had to be cut short. If you all want a part 2, let me know.